Wu Sus, the man who refused to quit. There once lived a man named Thomas Grayson in a small industrial town. He wasn't famous, rich, or exceptionally talented. In fact, by most people's standards, he was ordinary. But Thomas had one quality that set him apart. He refused to quit. From a young age, Thomas had always been passionate about building things. While other children played with toys, he took them apart to understand how they worked. He dreamed of becoming an inventor, someone who created machines that made life better. But dreams, especially big ones, often face tough realities. Thomas came from a poor family. His father was a factory worker, and his mother cleaned houses. They barely made enough to pay bills, let alone support a dream that involved expensive parts, tools, and education. Still, Thomas never let go of his passion. At 18, he applied to several engineering schools. All rejected him due to low grades and lack of formal training. Most would have stopped there, but not Thomas. He began working at the same factory as his father during the day and studied engineering books at night. Every spare coin he earned went into buying scrap materials for his inventions. His first invention was a machine designed to reduce water waste in factories. It was clunky, loud, and inefficient. When he presented it to his factory manager, they laughed at him. "You're a worker, not an engineer," they said. But Thomas didn't let the insult define him. He improved the machine, built new versions, and learned from each failure. For every 10 failures, there was one small improvement, and that kept him going. Years passed, and Thomas continued to invent. His friends gave up on him. Even his family grew tired of watching him pour money into projects that never worked. He was called crazy, delusional, and stubborn. At 35, Thomas hit rock bottom. He had used all his savings. One of his inventions caught fire and damaged his small workshop. People began to whisper, "He wasted his life." For a week, Thomas didn't touch a tool. He sat in silence, defeated, but something inside him refused to die. A voice whispered, "You've come this far, why stop now?" He stood up, cleaned his burned workshop, and started again. But this time, he worked on something different, a compact, affordable, energy-saving motor for small machines. It took him 2 years to perfect it. When it was finally ready, he went to 10 companies. All rejected it. On the 11th try, a small manufacturing firm decided to test it. To everyone's surprise, it worked brilliantly. It saved them money, reduced power usage, and was easy to install. They bought the rights and began mass-producing it. The motor became a hit in the market. Thomas, once called a failure, was now receiving awards. Engineers and scientists came to meet him. He was invited to speak at universities that once rejected him, but through it all, he stayed humble. At a conference, a young student asked him, "What kept you going when nothing worked?" Thomas smiled and replied, "I wasn't the smartest, I wasn't the richest. But I had one thing most people lose too quickly: belief in themselves. I didn't quit. That's my only real secret." Moral of the story: success doesn't always belong to the most talented or the most intelligent. Often, it goes to those who are willing to fail 100 times and still try again. Thomas Grayson's story teaches us that no dream is too big and no failure too strong, as long as you refuse to quit.